Speaking of which, this land speed car, I only got the very I heard, as you know, we scheduled this yesterday. I look like I've been on vacation for 2 weeks because I have.
Yesterday's being generous. I think it was like 10 o'clock last night that I finally responded because I had the headphones on out there just grinding away, welding, grinding. Oh man.
And so you'll forgive me for not being prepared with the total details, but I heard EV West, Bonneville, and I was like, yes, let's get Michael on the phone. So
last time we were together, we blew up a tranny on a dyno over an Oceanside.
Yeah, right? The Pikes Peak thing. The Pikes Peak car, which was cool, and if I recall, it did the video did a pretty decent amount of views.
Yeah,
and so ever since when people ask me about who to go to for electric in California, I've always sent them to you guys.
Thanks.
And I've seen a couple of your cars running around LA, some of the cars and coffees and stuff. But Bonneville is some other shit. I went there. I got to go 211 miles an hour in a Volkswagen Jetta.
You got to drive that Jetta.
I drove the Jetta, yeah. And they went like 209 was the official run, and I was like, I'm gonna beat that official number. And so I just kept my foot in it until I saw 211, and it's fun as hell. For the record, whatever that noise is, if you guys hear it, it's not me.
Pull
is that your Nextel? Oh yeah, there you go. Oh, there you go. Whatever that was. Remove the battery with anger.
Yeah. But nobody's gonna call.
Yeah. So what class are you running in? What is the car? How does it work? What's the story?
Right. So Bonneville's kind of like a bucket list thing for me. My dad grew up in West Hollywood and was a hot rod guy. Ran around with Von Dutch and guys like that, just doing the Hollywood hot rod thing. And so I kind of grew up with that influence and have never really had a chance to go to Bonneville. My dad's been several times with a couple teams and stuff, and it was just one of those things. And we've tried over the past couple of years to put something together. And, honestly, we've just been so busy. It's been tough. This was the year I hang out with a buddy of mine from the skateboard industry. I owned a company back in the day called Gravity Skateboards for about 25 years.
I didn't know that. I remember that brand.
That's basically how I got into EV West. When we started EV West in 2009, there was just like no money in EVs. People were like, you're a fool, dude. And so we kind of funded the startup and investment and all that from skateboards. So it's kind of like, green transpo. But anyways.
How cool.
Yeah, kind of got it up and going with that, and it eventually, grew to the point where we could run it. But where was I going with that?
Bonneville. Your dad at Bonneville.
Yeah, my dad, and so we've been trying, and this last year was just kind of finally a point where we had a moment where we could do it, and the skateboard thing was because of Roger Hickey, who's our driver. And, he's one of these guys that I met through skateboarding. He's been setting skateboard speed records all over the world. He's been over 100 miles an hour on a luge and I think over 90 on a skateboard. So just, like most Bonneville guys, I love you, Roger, but you got to screw loose.
Is he just pointed straight down like some crazy hill somewhere?
Yeah.
Is that really it?
He's a neat guy. He's probably somebody you might want to have on the show. He's a really good storyteller, and he's kind of like the Smokey Eunuch of skateboarding, if you know what that reference means.
Meaning like how to build cheatery skateboards for
nobody
competition?
Said cheat. Whoa, man. Whoa.
Just advanced.
Whoa. When you read a rule book,
really
there's lines between the pages. You read between the lines. I mean, we've been doing this. We've got several copies of the Bonneville book, and it's everywhere in here. It's like everybody's reading it, and we've been actually the staff at SCTA, the technical staff over there, has just been fantastic. We want to make sure we're doing everything right. A first year build, no surprise, electrics are not popular there. I think we're the only electric running this year. It's kind of an old school crowd, right?
One? There's only one?
I think so.
That's
signed up so far, and it could change, but it's a great venue for it. It's much like, Pikes Peak or any of the hill climb stuff. For electric, you're only going to run 6 to 8 minutes. Plenty of battery for that. And
totally.
So
so what is the vehicle? Is it based on something, or is it some crazy Lakester?
Yeah. So we originally bought a belly tanker, a fuel tank.
Oh God!
So cool.
Yeah.
Oh my
And,
God! All right. So you have a customer with a death wish. That's really where this stuff.
Well,
I'm into it.
it was our own death wish. I mean, we literally bought a fuel tank for the shop, and I mean, we're so dumb, you know. We're just like, oh yeah, let's put wheels, shoot an axle through this thing, and put a motor on it. And Roger put.
Once you know how to weld, when you start drinking tequila,
it's
a
scary,
whole different
right?
set of outcomes.
Yeah.
It's possible.
And you know, Roger puts the thing into CFD, you know, basically computer aero analysis, and the thing spins like a top. You know, we start talking, and then we're like, hey, you know, you guys know SoCal Speed Shop. They did the collaboration with Chevy a little while back, where they did a more modern rendition of a belly tanker, and then we're like, well, let's do that. We're electric. And we kind of started going down that path. And again, we're running into severe problems with aero. And we're not so old school
Turns
enough.
out those things only like look kind of aerodynamic.
It turns out, I think the only reason people used them is because they were just cheap. You know, you could get them. I don't know what the version of Craigslist was after the war, but you could find them.
Yeah.
And so then we're like, okay, well, let's make a Lakester with a kind of belly tanker look. And we kept kind of going through this design process and then running it.
Between a Lakester and a belly tanker, like what's a Lakester with a belly tanker look versus a Lakester that's not a belly tanker look?
Well, I guess technically in a weird way, a belly tanker is kind of a Lakester.
A belly tanker, for those who have no idea what we're talking about, is like a drop tank from an old airplane that held fuel. It kind of looks like a missile.
It is basically, torpedo shaped. And you look at some of these and you're surprised the driver can even fit in it with the engine and steering and linkage and all that stuff. So it's crazy, you know. But we kept refining the design process and got to this point where, you know, we had to pull the nose down to get some front end aero. We had to get a stabilizer in there and a few other things. And by the time we're done, it essentially looks like what they would call a streamliner, but we're technically a Lakester because our wheels sit outside of the body.
Okay, so belly tanker is a specific thing, and a Lakester is like any streamliner where the wheels are outside, and they're fully like unshrouded, right? Just open wheels.
Yeah, just open wheels. I mean, basically our front end.
And you're running those tires that look
car.
like inner tubes, right? Basically, like they look like you take them off and then go floating down the Colorado River in them with a cooler.
Yeah, and if a friend ever asks you to put one on a bead on a tire, just say no. Just run away. I had to crank those things up. We took them to 2 different tire shops and they both denied us because they took them to 80 psi and they wouldn't seat. And I put on the goggles, the ear protection, and just went all the way up. And they finally seated at like 125 psi.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
so like a semi truck.
And you know, these are Goodyear land speed tires, but it's got this. You know, they're rated for 300 plus miles an hour, but it's got the sticker on it like "Don't overinflate 35 pounds when seating." You know, it's just like
what?
It's the weirdest thing. But
what if you do that thing where you spray the butane inside there?
Oh god, we had everything in there. We had like 5. We did everything. It was nuts. We had everybody in the shop out there. The secret or the trick that finally worked is just letting them sit in the sun all day, getting as soft and hot as we could possibly get them. And then lots of simple green. Simple green, for whatever reason, works really well on tires. I don't know why, but there's something real slippery in that. And
the idea, like I think, like once that you let them sit in the sun, it's like, oh yeah, the desert tire works when they sit out in the desert for a little while.
You know, it's just it's funny, right? Like as car guys, you're like, oh yeah, I know a lot about this. Ask me a Porsche question. Ask me this. But then you go to land speed, and you're just like, I am so out of my element. I don't know any of this, you know. And we're calling guys, just asking the most rookie questions, like, how do we put the tires on? And you know,
and the endeavor requires so much precision. Like, you know, I'm looking at, you guys have some renderings up on your Instagram, and you know the previous electric car record is 340 miles an hour, and the shape of your vehicle, like you're not going for 185, like you are going for that. So everything is like CFD and measured and precise. And then you get to the tires and you're like, well, let's grab some of that simple green and a sponge and then get some pasta sauce and let's see if we can get these tires
This
on.
isn't working. Put them in the sun. Yeah, no, it's nuts, you know. And you mentioned numbers. If we could dive into that real quick so I can clarify for the listeners. So the current, the fastest electric car speed recorded was 341, and that's the Buckeye Bullet by Ohio State. But their actual record, the recorded record's 314 because you got to run for a whole mile. And so obviously they were either decelerating or accelerating through the mile because 314 was their average. And that's of two.
Well, don't you run both ways as well?
They don't run both ways anymore. Somebody's throttle stuck back in the day, and that kind of killed that. I guess he was coming in, as they say, coming in hot to the pits.
My God, imagine you're coming in towards the pits at like 400. Like, yikes!
Apparently that happened. Maybe I don't know the details, but I was basically told. And it's funny, Matt, because I said the same thing. Like, okay, so we go and run the other way. I mean, I watched all the documentaries and everything, and they don't do that anymore. You run the same way. So
look, not only do we not do it anymore, we don't talk about it either.
Yeah, we don't talk about it.
Oh, that little guy.
You ask if you can go the other way, and they just shake their head and go, "Oh, you poor child."
Yeah. I just pulled up the pictures on your Instagram. What you didn't mention is, I'm sorry, basically because I came back from my trip, Zach and I wanted to sort of quarantine for a couple days just in case I've been traveling.
Yeah.
And so we hate doing these three-way Zoom shows. They suck. Yeah. And we don't have
we're
visual
more used
assets
to it nowadays.
Today. I know, but normally we'd have visual assets to show. But all I'm trying to say is what you kind of glossed over is that the car is very pretty.
Oh, thank you.
It's a very good-looking car.
Thank you.
With
Roger Hickey of Hickey Speed designed it. I mean, we went back and forth, but he carried the weight on his shoulders on that one for sure. And it's tough. I don't know if you guys have ever done surface modeling in a CAD program. It's really easy to draw chassis tubes, and paramodeling is pretty easy. But you get into surfaces and this aerodynamic subtleties and stuff like that, and it really becomes complex. But real quick,
so 314 is the number.
Yeah, so 314 is the number that Ohio State has because that was their average over the course of 2 miles on separate days. So when you are kind of in the running for a record, you have 1 hour to get your car into impound, and then while in impound, you have 4 hours to work on it, and they'll let you go for the backup run, as they call it, the next morning. And so that's our plan. But what we really are doing is we're going after an E2 class record. We didn't want to show up to Bonneville like our very first year and like, hey, where's the salt? And we're going to, set the world record. I mean, it's so unrealistic. And we're very novice,
Burt
right?
Monroe of you.
Yeah, right. So Burt Monroe, So we're basically, we built a Lakester and we kept it under 1,000 kilograms, 2,200 freedom units. And so what we're going to do with that is we want to hit what's called an E2 class record. That record right now is only 213 miles an hour.
What separates E2 from E1?
Well, so the E3 class would be unlimited.
Goes the other way?
Yeah, it goes the other way, and that would be 2,201 pounds and up, basically 1,001 kilogram and up. And you look at some of these things, like I'm not sure the final weight. I heard it was like 10,000 pounds on the Buckeye Bullet, the Venturi car. So, you can get heavy real quick with a land speed car and electric and all that. So our plan is we've geared our motor to do 338 mile an hour at 16,000 RPM, right? So that's our max wheel speed.
16,000 RPM, and you have a single speed? One speed?
Single speed. In fact, on our Instagram just yesterday, we posted a video with the new gear set, the reduction, and the calibrated speedometer. And actually guys are holding our 930 shafts in because they're not even clipped yet. And we ran it up to that speed, and it came out to be like 3,700 RPM at the flange. I mean, just crazy. And the wildest thing is, you run it from 0 basically up to 337, no gear shifts, no pauses in the motor. And because of the reduction, we're putting close to 2,000 foot-pounds out at the shaft.
Wow.
So, that's about all the facts we know, how fast we're going to run.
So you're like a 1-to-1. You're a 1-to-1, like a Koenigsegg.
We're a 4.5 to 1 because we have that 16,000 RPM, right? So we reduce 16,000 by 4.5, and we end up with a flange, basically a wheel speed of around 3,700 RPM max. We're running a 31-inch land speed wheel in the rear, and so that equates to about 337 mile an hour. Now, we're going to have slip on the salt. There's a lot of factors. There's wind and all this. We're not going for the 314. We think it's completely unrealistic that we could do it in this car. But what we are doing is gathering a lot of data. We've got our partners, AEMEV, involved in this, and we're going to do some really just data gathering, look at what kind of wheel slip we're going to have, look at
a lot.
Right.
It's going to be. Let me just tell you, I wasn't, and I'm talking about a Jetta. Okay.
Yeah.
It probably weighed 2,700 pounds. It's not even close to what you're talking about here. And I couldn't go flat until somewhere around 125 miles an hour in the top of like fourth gear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Otherwise, it was just so like.
I mean, based on our RPM and torque, we figured we could spin wheels all the way up to 200 is what we calculated.
Wow.
And,
that's some like David Donahue shit.
But we're just kids at heart. Like, really, all the crew wants to know is like, can we do a donut?
Yes.
Like, will they let us do a donut out there? Like,
I think you'd worry about doing a donut at 300 miles an hour is what you should really be worried about.
No. You might want a little wider track to do.
But we did, we like any team, we've been having meetings and kind of assessing a game plan. And so we kind of have a plan. And you go out on the short course and you license up and, get the 150, 175, move to the long course. And then we have some numbers that we're specifically going after to get the record. And then when we're done with that, we've basically given our driver, Roger, the green light to just like light it up, dude. Let's see what this thing has, see if we can hurt it. What can we do, because that's really what we're, going for, right?
I mean, it's amazing. With a typical Bonneville car, gasoline powered, what you see a lot is you have to do the push start with the trucks, right? Because the gearing is so crazy that the things can't even idle hardly. I'm guessing you won't have this problem at all. You'll be able to just cruise around,
we'll have enough starting torque at the wheel. If we had Velcro tires, we could drive the thing up a wall.
That would be kind of sick.
Our torque exceeds the weight of the car.
That's hilarious. I'm all for a visual demo, by the way. Maybe you should consider driving it up a wall. I think.
Well, we've been talking. It's funny. Spent. We've been talking to another Southern California automotive outlet about doing some drag racing in it, and literally, I think all we have to do is change the rear tires.
If you tried to do is it so much power that if you had a sticky rear tire and you tried to do drag launches that you think you would probably break it, or do you think it would hold up to that type of abuse?
I think it would probably hold up. I don't think we have enough weight in the car. Right. You how much torque you have is kind of insignificant without traction and some weight over the rear axle. Yeah. So
where's the motor? Oh, basically attached right to the rear axle, pretty much.
Yeah, technically you would call it a rear engined vehicle because the differential and the reduction sits in front of the motor, right? And so if you look, look at the surprised look. He's like, "Is this?"
Wait, the whole shit is the whole motor's behind the driver. Everything's back there.
Yeah. So if you look at that picture with the two big cans back there, one half is the motor and the other half is the inverter, and then the reduction box and differential sit in the middle. So,
that's rear engined. Okay, right. And then where are the batteries? Just the floor?
So there's a big empty box in front of that. We're putting in an experimental battery pack that we picked up. It's about 37 kilowatt hour, about 600 pounds. And that goes right in the middle. And we actually kind of need a little bit of the weight. We could have done a lighter battery, but we just wanted to kind of get some weight around the rear wheels.
Are you at your max weight? I imagine. Right?
No, we had it on the long acres earlier, and I think we're estimating about 1,700. So we'll probably come in about 300 under. Roger's probably about 200, 190 or something like that. So we'll be right there. Race weight, 19 or something.
So is this thing, you think, the way that you would set up a car like this to basically drain the whole battery pack in like a 4 or 5 mile run and just flow as much juice as you possibly can? Or how many runs do you think you can get out of a charge?
Well, so first of all, when you're draining the pack, your actual voltage goes down, right? And there's a direct linear relationship between the voltage and horsepower. So you don't want to run it all the way down because then you would be, literally losing horsepower as you go down the run. So we're trying to stay in that top 50% of the pack, right? So we took, according to our calculations, a wide open run would be somewhere between 16 and 20 kilowatt hours of energy, and which in a street car would get you like 75 miles for reference, right?
Yeah. Turns out going fast takes a lot of energy. Yeah,
the range kind of sucks in a land speed car. And
but it would be pretty gangster if, as another visual demo, you drove it like 100 miles on the street. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, we probably could if we could make it over a speed bump. The thing's like 2 inch off the ground or something. It's funny because I was driving home late night and kind of delirious, working so late, and I was like, I wonder if we could take this on the street. And I realized we can't even get out of the parking lot. Like, there's no way.
How much steering?
It would high center.
Does it have any steering angle at all?
Okay, so it's really, you're charging it up basically every run, right? Or you might get 2.
Yeah, and I'll come back to steering angle, Zach, because I want to talk about that a little bit. But the charging's fascinating because we're doing kind of a world first, or whatever you want to call it. And again, we're crazy. We are going to solar charge. We figured Bonneville. Yeah, I mean, look it, man. It's beautiful out there, right? I've been on Instagram, and I just kind of follow the hashtag Bonneville Salt Flats. And it's a neat hashtag, by the way, because half of it is just badass automotive stuff. And then the other half is, a bunch of girls going out there and just posing with
That's
this.
hilarious.
But in all honesty,
influencers in the wild.
It's a wonderful piece of nature, right? It's absolutely gorgeous out there. Tons of photographs. I mean, we all look at, sales slick photographs of cars and stuff like that. And the Southern California equivalent is El Mirage.
Yes. My favorite place to get video. I love it.
Right. So we kind of have a responsibility to protect these areas, right? And we're like, oh yeah, we're this cool electric car company. And then we show up and we just start firing up the Onan generators or whatever. It just doesn't make sense. So a good friend of mine, actually a friend that goes all the way back to like when we were 5 years old, has started a company called Tier 4 Solar, and he makes solar tracking systems that actually use servos to angle the panels so that they're always the most efficient angle to the sun.
That's awesome.
And we're bringing that trailer out, and we're actually going to generate our own electricity right there on the salt.
That's so kick-ass.
For all of our runs. Yeah, so we're basically the sustainable team. It'd be like, VP showing up with their car, and then in the truck they got like a little petroleum distillery or something in the back,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No,
we'll actually be creating the fuel at Bonneville.
It's amazing. But you said there's 4 hours, right, in between runs. So can you charge up enough juice in 4 hours with that rig to be back where you need to be for run 2?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we have is we have actually 3 battery packs. So we're taking almost 120 kilowatt hour of energy for the car. And the trailer has 48 kilowatt hour plus some reserve. So the trailer's got about 50 kilowatt hour. So, if you take 16 kilowatt hour into 50 right off the bat without, if it was completely cloudy, we'd still get 3 runs off the trailer before we needed solar. But, it's going to be sunny. It always is.
Right.
We check the weather. So the whole time while we're depleting the batteries charging, the solar system's charging those batteries up, and we've got them in rotation. So we've got a pretty good plan for this. We've done, other events that have required, creative charging and things like that. So, yeah, definitely took some planning, and we wanted to do something unique, and now you're going to go to Bonneville. There's going to be, all this stuff everywhere. And then we're going to be the nerds in the corner with the solar panels and the electric car.
They make movies about the fucking nerds, dude. They make movies about the nerds. Burt Monroe was a nerd, but I hear from, who told it? Oh, Gail Banks. Gail Banks told us that on the Bonneville Salt Flats, Burt Monroe fucked everybody.